Welcome to another episode of Subspecies 101. My name is Ryan Kelly, and today I'll be talking about another subspecies from Iceborne. Shocking, I know. However, this one is a lot more interesting than any of the other Iceborne subspecies I've talked about so far, in the sense that people's opinions on this subspecies seems to vary quite a bit. This subspecies is the one and the only Ebony Odogaron. Before I get into this episode of Subspecies 101, I should just say that I made a video called The Art of Subspecies in Monster Hunter, where I go into detail as to why a person likes subspecies and why I believe they should get more credit than they do currently. Now, you don't have to watch that video to enjoy this series, just know that I'll be discussing ideas and principles from that video while I analyze each subspecies. And finally, I'll be ranking each subspecies from 1, avoid the fight, to 10, pursue the fight. With that being said, let's talk about Ebony Odogaron. Just like every episode of Subspecies 101 so far, Ebony Odogaron comes from a batch of subspecies from the 5th generation of Monster Hunter, Iceborne. And just like every subspecies in Iceborne, Ebony can only be found in Master Rank and is a 4-star Master Rank quest. Now, something that's interesting about Ebony is that it's a subspecies that gains elemental attacks when the original didn't have any besides a few attacks that could cause bleeding. So, it's the exact opposite of how Acidic loses its elemental attacks, which is pretty cool. Also, Ebony is interesting because unlike most subspecies in Monster Hunter, it will attack and even kill its counterpart since it's in the constant state of hunger and is willing to kill anything for food. And since it's always hungry, it will always be on the move, making it another nomadic monster. Ebony is another subspecies like Fulgur that can be found in every area of Iceborne, which is something I actually didn't know before making this video. And finally, Ebony is actually pretty similar to another infamous monster in the Monster Hunter series, Savage Joe, but is not nearly as much of a threat. It just so happens that they're both nomadic, dragon blight monsters that are in a constant state of hunger. Ebony Odogaron is the first subspecies that I've reviewed in this series that isn't really that different from the original. Of course, it does have some differences, but nothing that makes you have to fight Ebony any differently than Odogaron. However, before we get into that, let's talk about the differences between Ebony and Odogaron's designs. While Odogaron is bright red with yellow eyes, Ebony Odogaron is jet black with bright red eyes and its face is surrounded in a red cloud of dragon blight. So they do look quite a bit different from each other, but that's really about the extent of their differences. The fight with Ebony pretty much feels exactly the same as Odogaron's fight, with the exception of a few new simple dragon blight attacks, and the fact that it doesn't focus on bleeding as much as the original does. It's also a little bit more aggressive than Odogaron is, and of course has more health and power, which makes sense considering that Odogaron is a 2-star quest, while Ebony is a 4-star one. Now, something that's actually pretty cool about Ebony that is different from Odogaron is the fact that whenever it does eat, it goes into a frenzy state, which is something that's interesting if you look at Ebony from a biological standpoint. Whenever most monsters eat, they primarily focus on, well, eating. But this makes sense that it goes crazy whenever it eats because it's protective over its meal. Other than that, I really don't have much more to say about the differences between Ebony and Odogaron, because like I said before, these two fights aren't really that different from each other. So, what do I think about Ebony Odogaron? Well, as you probably picked up on by now, I am not a huge fan of this subspecies. It's not because it doesn't drastically change like other subspecies I reviewed so far do, because subspecies don't have to change drastically to be enjoyable or to even be one of my favorites, because there are a few subspecies that don't change drastically that I really like Ashkechawacha. However, it does have to be at least better than the original. Yeah, I like Odogaron's fight more than Ebony's. I like the fact that Odogaron is fast and purely focuses on raw damage and bleeding. I thought this combination of close combat with raw and bleeding damage was something that was pretty unique and hadn't really been seen in Monster Hunter so far. However, Ebony's fight is something that I've seen a few other monsters do already and do it better, like Stygian Zinogre and Savage Joe. Now, I would say the combination of Dragon Blight and bleeding would be really cool, but I rarely bleed from this fight since it focuses more on Dragon Blight than it does on its raw attacks. I really just feel like Ebony is that subspecies that's trying so hard to be something cool and edgy instead of trying to do something different. Now, I don't hate Ebony. I really do like its design no matter how edgy it might look, and it does have some pretty good gear that's definitely worth grinding. So, with that in mind, I'd give Ebony Odogaron a 6 out of 10. This monster isn't bad by any means. I do actually enjoy its fight quite a bit despite what I might have made it sound like. I was just being hard on this subspecies since I was actually really excited to fight Ebony because it looked like such a promising subspecies. Trust me, there are some really bad subspecies in Monster Hunter, and Ebony is definitely not one of them. I just don't like it as much as the original, and I feel like this fight really isn't anything super special, especially when compared to some of the other subspecies from Iceborne. So, as you probably guessed, Ebony Odogaron is my least favorite subspecies I've reviewed so far, and my least favorite subspecies in Iceborne. Now, I seriously doubt this subspecies will be at the bottom of the list because, as I said before, this really isn't a bad monster. I just don't think it's as good as people are saying it is, especially when compared to some of the other subspecies I've reviewed so far. Honestly, I could see Ebony staying in the middle of the list or even getting closer to the top of the list. So, what are your opinions about Ebony Odogaron? Do you think it deserves a higher or lower ranking? Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video or not. Also, make sure to click the like button if you liked this episode and hit that subscribe button if you're interested in seeing more content from this channel. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. My name is Ryan Kelly and I hope to see you in the next episode of Subspecies 101.